DNB goes to Talk Commanders.
I listen to it every day at work.
The Team 980 and Odyssey Sports Station. Knowledgeable.
Listen, here's what's wrong with your hypothesis, your theorem, your supposition, your postulate.
Honest.
If that front ain't in gangster, your back end won't be able to show its full potential.
Understanding.
You're going to suck. You're going to suck for the next couple of years.
Passionate.
I'm all over social media. I live it.
This is the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Hashtag facts.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Now, here's Kevin.
It's Kevin Sheehan Show right here on the Team 980. We're always live and free on the Odyssey app as well. We're on camera. It's my first time sitting in for Kevin, and we've got the video stream going. You can check us out on the X app at the Team 980. You can also check us out on YouTube as well, I believe, at the Team 980 as well. So you get to see my handsome face, youngest in Charles and L. Willingham, sitting in for Kevin as we take you up to 1 p.m. this afternoon. Me and you, the next 3 hours. A lot to get to. Busy week, I would say it was, in the Beltway. Obviously, the NFL draft coming up in about 2 weeks. We'll touch on that. Last night, the Caps go out and clinch the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They're ready for a playoff, which it seems like. We'll get to the Caps in great detail before we get out of here as well. Nats back in action tonight after going 4-2 during their homestand. So a lot of news items to get to. The first of which that we'll get to is actually something that just broke 10, 15 minutes ago. Washington Commanders making a very interesting addition to their quarterback room. They go with former Commanders quarterback Josh Johnson. As you all remember, he was here during the Jay Gruden era, and Josh Johnson is well-traveled throughout the National Football League, I would say. But it now puts Washington's quarterback room as follows. It is Jaden Daniels. It is Marcus Mariota. It is Josh Johnson. It is Sam Hartman. So last year, their magic number going into the offseason in terms of how many quarterbacks they were going to take, that magic number was 4. Washington now at 4. So if they choose, they can be done making additions to the quarterback room. I don't think they make any more additions. Unless Josh Johnson or Sam Hartman, for that case, come out and are just absolutely buns during the start of the offseason period. You're probably going to have these guys be your 4 quarterbacks going into the year. Last year, the way Washington did it, 2 quarterbacks active on game day, and then the 3rd emergency quarterback. So a lot of the times last year, it was Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, and then Jeff Driscoll as that emergency 3rd quarterback. I think moving forward here, this is why I think this year for Washington in the preseason is going to be a lot more impactful, a lot more important than maybe in years past. This is a good thing, by the way. There is going to be steep, heavy competition at every position this year. Coming up in OTAs, mandatory minicamp, training camp, it is going to be difficult to make this final 53. And I think you can say the same thing about the quarterback. Looking and moving with a little bit of foresight here, if you were the Commanders, right? At some point, you know Jaden Daniels is your long-term quarterback of the future, right? At some point, you want to find who your long-term backup of the future is going to be, just based upon age and the guys that are currently in the room. I would think that they want Sam Hartman to be that guy. Now, Sam Hartman was on the practice squad pretty much all of last year. Him going into year number 2, can he show you something in camp or in the preseason to where maybe you don't have to keep Josh Johnson around? Maybe you can go with Sam Hartman as your 3rd quarterback and have Johnson be the guy that's on the practice squad. But we'll see when we get there. Washington, I think it's a 1-year deal that they agreed terms on with quarterback Josh Johnson. He is not the only quarterback that put pen to paper this morning. And this gets very interesting relative to the NFL draft. The Cleveland Browns signing Joe Flacco to a 1-year, $4 million deal. That was reported by ESPN's Adam Schefter this morning. Obviously, we know Flacco was in Cleveland in 2003. He started that playoff game that they had in 2003 against Houston, and we know the way he looked down the stretch. Look, the Cleveland quarterback room is now all but wrapped up, I would think, right? You've got Deshaun Watson, who is rehabbing from that Achilles, probably going to miss all of next year. And then you have Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. Two guys that if you are Cleveland, if you are Kevin Stefanski and company, I'm sure you would feel comfortable, or you have to feel comfortable, with going into the regular season with either of those two as a starter. Now, I think you could look at the Cleveland Flacco signing in a couple of different ways. The top of the draft, and I know us here locally have been paying a lot of attention towards the bottom of the draft, and thank God, right, for 1 year, we're finally not locked in on the quarterback position when it comes to the NFL draft. I think moving forward, right, looking ahead, and now we've got 2 weeks. We just saw the Colorado Pro Day. Cam Ward's had his Pro Day. Cleveland is in a very interesting position here because I would have to think bringing in Joe Flacco, to me, probably excludes you from going out and making the trade that I thought that they were going to make. That's going out and getting Kirk Cousins from Atlanta. And I think if you are Cleveland, now that you've got Flacco, you've got Pickett, do you take a long, hard look at Shedeur Sanders at number 2 overall? I think you have to here. But this is the thing about Coach Stefanski and why the situation in Cleveland, I think, is so much more different than the situation that exists in New York with the Giants. Two teams that are quarterback needy, two teams that are picking right after one another. Cleveland 2, New York at 3. I think Cleveland actually does have the infrastructure in place for Shedeur to compete, for Shedeur to be able to have instant success. I look at New York and already having Jameis Winston, already having Russell Wilson in that quarterback room. I know what some of your favorite draft pundits are probably saying. Oh, that shouldn't preclude you, from taking a quarterback. It should. It should, because realistically speaking, there is a conflict of interest in New York with the Giants, right? Ownership wants them to find the quarterback of the future and win. If you are Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, finding your quarterback of the future, that's got to be on the back burner, because the reality is this. Who's to say you're going to be the coach and GM of the future? So in New York, they've got to win as many games as possible. So I'm thinking, if I am the Giants, I go Abdul Carter, despite what I already have at the edge rusher spot with Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. You can never have too many elite defensive linemen. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles, right? So if I'm New York, I'm taking a long, hard look at Abdul Carter. I'm taking a long, hard look at Travis Hunter. And I'm also having this in consideration as well. Do you trade back if you're the New York Giants and acquire as many picks as possible? It's a similar discussion to what we're going to have here in Washington over the next couple of weeks. Do you trade back from 29? Do you trade back from 61? But with Joe Flacco putting pen to paper in Cleveland, I think it kind of closes the door on Shedeur Sanders, even though I think they have the better infrastructure of these two quarterback needy teams at number 2 and number 3 overall. Talking about New York and Cleveland, I think they're in a much better spot. Talking about Cleveland to take the quarterback, but them signing Joe Flacco, I think lends towards them going BPA at number 2 overall, whether it's Abdul Carter, whether it's Travis Hunter, and then their second first-round pick coming through, sweeping up that quarterback of the future, whether it's Tyler Shuck, whether it's Jackson Dart, if those two are available when Cleveland gets back on the clock. As we get into the 11 o'clock hour here this morning, we will get into the Washington Commanders and what their draft future looks like. Yesterday on social media, and Twitter is always a great place. You can follow me. It's at NELL_BTP. Yesterday on social media, just ridiculous amounts of engagement. And some may say, you were engagement farming, Linnell. No, I put out a tweet that I felt like would maybe ruffle some feathers around here in terms of people not being on the same page. And it's the running back position, and it's Brian Robinson. And I felt like, we'll take your calls on this as we move into the 11 o'clock hour in terms of like the most overblown Commanders offseason take. For me, it has to do with the running back position. But we'll get into the Commanders as we creep into the 11 o'clock hour. A lot more to get to before we get to the burgundy and gold. I want to touch on the Caps here for a second. Do they look like a bunch now that is ready for a postseason push. Last night, 5-4 winners in shootout fashion. Tom Wilson scoring his career best 33rd goal of the season. It's been a super fun season for this group for obvious reasons, right? The chase for Alex Ovechkin now surpassing Wayne Gretzky with 896 career goals.
I think we're looking at 900 next. That's the number we want to see.
That's the number we want to see next, but the current number he's at is at 895, so I'm an idiot. See,
yeah, he hasn't scored since he broke it. I was hoping he would last night, but he hasn't scored since he broke the record.
I would have to think there was a whole ad campaign on both of the stations. Scored by Main Street Bank, chasing what? 895.
They had the throne out of the arena last night. They have a big throne of pucks that you can sit on. It says 895.
So
That's really cool.
I saw a lot of that, and first and foremost, Ted Leonsis, the owner of the Capitals, Wizards, Mystics, was on Kevin's show yesterday and was on Grant and Danny a little bit earlier this week. We'll play you some of the best audio from Ted's appearance with Kevin yesterday as we roll throughout this opening hour. But kudos to Ted and Monumental Sports for getting this right. And I feel like, Chris, it's one of those things you couldn't get wrong in terms of the ceremonies that are in place, in terms of getting the fans to be bought in terms of, doing this all the right way. I sent the tweet to myself so I didn't mess up the details of this. So I don't know if you're aware of this or fans out there are aware of this either. There is a Great 8 city celebration set to go down today at Capital One Arena in order to accommodate the increased amount of fans. It was moved from Union Station where they were going to do this at. And I think Union Station, I've caught the Greyhound there many a time. So I know the space that they got inside of there.
It's pretty big.
Not enough for this parade, though, Chris.
Yeah.
Not enough for this parade. So they're calling it the Great 8 celebration. It's from 3 to 5 at Cap One Arena this afternoon. Alex Ovechkin going to make an appearance. There are giveaways, photo opportunities, a retail pop-up, and more. I always love when they put the and more.
Yeah.
Because it gets you on the edge.
So what's and more?
Exactly. So
it does sound great. Awesome. And it's indoors. So for a rainy day like today, that sounds like a great activity.
You're picking up what I'm putting down. Perfect. That's why I say they get it. They get it. And to switch the venue. So they announced the venue switch last night. So to switch, I don't know how long this has been in the works, but I love it. I love the fact that they're leaning into history here, because the old man in me, I'm 27 years old, but you get what I'm saying. The old man in me, people got upset with me and all nasty with me on Twitter the other night or on Sunday when Ovi broke the record. I go, great, record's broken. We can put it behind us now. Can we focus on defense? Can we focus on the other stuff that goes on the ice? Because before their shootout win last night against Carolina, they were losers of 5 out of their last 7. But to their credit, and I think
their second period last night was beast, by the way.
Yes, the second period last night, mind you, Chris, they needed that second period last night. Because when you go down 2-1, I'm all of a sudden thinking, oh, Lord. Is this going to be now 6 out of 8? Is this going to turn into you not playing your best hockey as we get geared up for the playoffs? I think last night kind of eased the burden for me. As you mentioned, a 3-goal second period for the Caps, and Alex Ovechkin was flying around last night defensively in a manner that I hadn't seen in a little while. A very
almost as though a weight has been lifted off his shoulders, you might say.
It's almost like he's putting something on the back burner. It's almost like something's not distracting him all of a sudden. But no, he looked great. I thought defensively they were just super physical last night, and you needed to see that, especially when you consider what happened the last time, right, that you went up against this Carolina team. This is like old takes exposed, right? That old page, freezing cold takes. So after Ovi tied the goal scoring record, was it Friday night against Chicago, I thought, well, hell, if you're Alex Ovechkin here, if you're the Caps, knowing the way the crowd reacted to him tying the record, I thought, why would you not want to break the record at home this upcoming Thursday against Carolina? So I would have sat him out against the Islanders. Obviously, nobody cares what I think.
There'd be a lot of people mad that had bought tickets to that Islanders game if they had sat him like that. I mean, this isn't LeBron James here. You can't expect that kind of stuff.
For sure. But obviously, this matchup against Carolina, I had circled because I was excited to see how they bounced back. The last time these two teams played last week, Chatfield completely, and I'm not someone that I guess, admittedly so, understands the unwritten rules of the NHL, but the way that Chatfield slammed McMichael to the ice last week, you knew that when Carolina came to Cap One yesterday, that things were going to be physical. Things got physical. Gloves were off. Duhamel and Chatfield got at it, man, right away. And look, the thing that I love about it, the fight happened, you move on. That's it. That's the beautiful thing about hockey.
Yeah.
You fight, someone gets their ass kicked, and then you move on like nothing.
You don't
ever
hear about it in the press back and forth for like 3 days in a row. They keep making statements.
No one's getting fined. It's beautiful. It's why it's part of the reason that hockey is growing on me, I will say. But I will say this, right? That second period last night looked like the Washington Capitals that had the most points in the Eastern Conference for all of the regular season. Like, they look like a group that can go on a Stanley Cup playoff run. And last night they clinched that number 1 seed. Not sure. I gotta go check in on Winnipeg in terms of whether or not they're still in play for the President's Cup trophy. I think they're a point or two behind Winnipeg still. But it was amazing to see what you saw last night. Them kind of get off the schneid, look like the juggernaut that we know that they can be offensively. And we mentioned it, Tom Wilson, 33 damn goals this year for Willie, man. So, like, we talk about Alex Ovechkin.
Well, he's not just an enforcer,
Right, exactly. He can now got some finesse to his game. And I will say this, right? Last night, they needed the enforcer version of him. They got it. They got it from Ovechkin. Nick Dowd put a guy down. I mean, it was awesome to watch them be as physical as they were. And clearly, it was on the back of their mind what had happened last week. I give credit, though, to Carolina. I don't know if you saw this. So right before the puck drop, they all lined up and congratulated Alex Ovechkin for –
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't see that part. Yeah.
For all of the fights that happen in hockey, Chris, the sportsmanship, I would say, is a lot higher than I would have given them credit for, not being a guy that, watches hockey every night. From this to OV lining up the Caps, what was it, last week, to shake the goaltender's hand. Like, there is great sportsmanship in hockey, and I think it's really cool to see. Caps, though, last night, as we've mentioned multiple times here, clinching the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Going into last night, losers to 5 out of their last 7. As we look at the stretch run of the season here, the last 4 games, you had a home and home against Columbus. You take on the Islanders one more time, and then you finish on the road at PPG Paints Arena against Sid the Kid and the Penguins. So really 4 games left to go here. This is, if you had to inject me with truth serum, Doc Walker style, right? This, before last night, I wouldn't have been surprised, is how I would put it. Before last night, I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have got bounced in the opening round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Now, after seeing them kind of get off of the schneid, hopefully here in this final 4 games of the regular season, you can see them play the brand of hockey that they played in that second period, so they can go on a Stanley Cup playoff run here. How much more special would this season be? OV breaking the record after missing, 3 weeks with a broken leg, and then they go out and win Lord Stanley's trophy?
I think
it would be the icing on the cake.
It would be so cool. Also, just as a fan of the rivalry with Crosby, because Crosby's got that extra cup win
over OV. Yes.
And if you had the 2 cup wins and then the goal record, I mean, what's Crosby going to do to beat that? Penguins ain't winning. They ain't even making the playoffs anytime soon.
No. Rough sledding for the Pittsburgh Penguins here to start. A lot more to get to, though, man. We'll take you up to 1 p.m. Eastern time. Got the call late. Sitting in for my guy, Kevin Sheehan. Metal Chris behind the glass, taking your calls at 301-230-0980. We mentioned the Caps. They're back and ready for a postseason push. The Washington Nationals, they're back in action tonight after going 4-2 during their homestand, including their performance that we saw, what was that, Wednesday afternoon, as they nearly swept the LA Dodgers. The owner of the Washington Capitals, Ted Leonsis, joined Kevin yesterday and had some interesting thoughts about his interest in buying the Nationals. We'll preview the Nats and Marlins weekend series, plus let you hear from Ted Leonsis next, right here on the Team 980.
After years on the Skins beat, Chris Russell talks Commanders every afternoon from 1 to 4 on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Hey, it's EB. If you're ready to transform your backyard into the ultimate retreat, you got to check out my friends at Offenbachers. Why spend a fortune on a high-maintenance pool when you can enjoy the versatility of the state-of-the-art swim spa for less? A swim spa lets you swim, exercise, and relax all in one convenient space. And when it's time to unwind, nothing beats the soothing comfort of a traditional hot tub. Slide into warm, bubbling water and let the jets melt away your stress. Offenbachers will help you find the perfect swim spa or hot tub for your needs. Plus, Offenbachers is taking wellness to the next level with their brand new cold plunges. Experience the power of hot and cold therapy. Reduce inflammation, boost circulation, and feel more refreshed than ever. Visit Offenbachers today in Herndon, Annapolis, Gainesville, or Rockville, or browse online at Offenbachers.com. And here's a special offer. Tell them EB sent you, and you'll get a free $500 gift card with your spa purchase. Don't wait. Secure your summer now with Offenbach.
You know what's better than a limited time deal? An unlimited time deal. That's why the Wendy's $5 biggie bag with a junior bacon cheeseburger, 4-piece nugs, junior hot and crispy fries, and small soft drink is available all the time. Because the best time for fresh, never frozen beef and Applewood smoked bacon is all the time. Duh. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot. For the best deal of all time, gotta be Wendy's.
Unlimited time does not mean forever. U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska, Hawaii, and California and via third-party delivery. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You could think you found your dream home online. The kitchen island looks perfect for your inner chef. The backyard, a paradise for your green thumb. And that extra room, hello walk-in closet. But here's the twist. The lot next door just got rezoned for years of construction. And this sound, yeah, you're going to be hearing a lot of that. Don't let your dream home turn into a nightmare. Work with the expertise and ethical training of a Realtor, here to guide and help protect you from the surprises you didn't see coming. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors, right by you.
Bonaventure Akinloso 2, attorney advertising, is responsible for this ad. Attention. Were you sexually abused as a minor in a Maryland juvenile detention center, school, camp, church, or another institution? No matter how long ago it happened, you may have the right to seek justice. Call 800-409-8888. If the abuse occurred at a juvenile detention center, school, camp, foster care, residential group home, church, or another institution, you may have a legal claim, even if you don't remember all the details. An attorney can help investigate. Call 800-409-8888 now for a free confidential case review. Time may be limited. Take action today. Call 800-409-8888. That's 800-409-8888.
On Fridays, BetMGM, authorized gaming operator of the NBA, is making first field goal scorer wagers more exciting with Second Chance. What's Second Chance? Ever bet on your favorite baller to score the first field goal only to see him dish the rock to his teammate for the easy layup? Well, with BetMGM Second Chance, you'll get your stake back in cash if your first field goal scorer scores second. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to gamble responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms. This U.S. promotional offer not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. For New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Massachusetts, 1-800-327-5050. Iowa, 1-800-BETS-OFF. Puerto Rico, 1-800-981-0023. For West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. Subject to eligibility requirements in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel.
If you're 55 and up, T-Mobile has plans built just for you. 2 lines of unlimited for just $30 a line. That's a 45% savings compared to Verizon and AT&T. But don't just take our word for it.
It's not just the savings that are great with our T-Mobile plan. There's all this value from all these other things that T-Mobile offers. T-Mobile has been such a savings for us.
We love it.
Switch today and get 2 free 5G phones like the Motorola Edge with Turbo Power charging that gives you power for the day in just 15 minutes. And customers 55 and up can get 2 lines of talk, text, and data for only $30 a line. Go to T-Mobile.com/choice55 to learn more. With 24 monthly bill credits and 2 new lines with autopay for well-qualified customers plus taxes, fees, and $35 per line connection charge. Credits end and balance due if you pay off early or cancel. Contact us plus $5 per line without autopay. Debit or bank account required. 45% off 2 lines versus AT&T Starter and Verizon Welcome. Plan benefits vary. See details at T-Mobile.com. Motorola Edge requires 68-watt charger. Charger sold separately. Actual performance will vary based on usage and configuration.
From the Augusta National Golf Club, Westwood One Sports presents this special report on the Masters. I'm Ted Emmerich. After overnight showers, the skies have cleared for the second round, and Bryson DeChambeau is within striking distance after he finished his first round strong. The 2-time U.S. Open winner shot 3 under 69. He went to bed tied for 5th and 4 shots off the lead.
Yeah, I've got equipment that works a lot better than what I used to have, and I feel like now I'm in a place that I'm in a mindset, more of a mindset, where I feel a lot more patient. I think that pays dividends out here when it's a really windy day or even a perfect day. Yeah, I'm enjoying this right now. I'm sorry. I appreciate the questions, but it's beautiful right now. Look at that.
DeChambeau sounded like he saw a double rainbow at Augusta. Bryson now 5 off the lead with Justin Rose's early birdie. Rose is 8 under. DeChambeau just about to tee off. You're listening to coverage of the 2025 Masters on Westwood One.
David is a real Prevagen user, and this is his story.
Nice to meet you. My name is David. I've been a pharmacist for 44 years, and I'm from Flowery Branch, Georgia. When I first started taking Prevagen, I noticed stuff just seemed to come together and fit like a jigsaw puzzle. When I have customers come in, I recommend Prevagen. Number one, because it's safe and effective, does not require a prescription. And I've been taking it quite a while myself, and I know it works. I wouldn't recommend something like Prevagen if I didn't think it was worth it because it works so good for me. And I love it when the customers come back in and tell me, David, that really works so good. Makes my day.
Prevagen, at stores everywhere without a prescription. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Testimonialist was compensated for their time.
Justin Rose was the first round leader for a record 5th time at Augusta National, and he's building on his start. Let's check the leaderboard, sponsored by Prevagen. Prevagen, made for your brain. Rose teeing off before 9 Eastern this morning. A birdie at the par 5 second, had a nice par save at the par 3 fourth. He is 8 under. Rose now trying to save his par at 5 after putting his tee shot into a fairway bunker. Ludwig Oberg starts with a par. He's 4 under, 4 back, also at 4 under, and teeing off this afternoon. Scotty Scheffler and Corey Connors. Scheffler in one of the last groups to tee off at 1:23 Eastern. Sung Jae Im back-to-back birdies to start his second round. Im is 3 under, 5 back, along with Bryson DeChambeau and Tyrrell Hatton. Hatton is in the afternoon wave. At 2 under par, Daniel Berger, who's through 3 holes today, Matt Fitzpatrick, who's played 2 holes, and Akshay Bhatia, who parred the first hole. From Augusta, I'm Ted Emmerich, Westwood One Sports.
It's Kevin Sheehan on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up the door, it's real. It's a non-stop pop out and stainless steel.
It's Kevin Sheehan Show right here on the Team 980. We're always live and free on the Odyssey app as well. It's the youngest in Charles and Willingham. I'll take you up to 1 p.m. As we get into the 11 o'clock hour, we'll start to touch on the burgundy and gold a little bit. It's crazy, man. 13 days out from night 1, round 1 of the 2024 NFL draft. Can't wait for that. I threw out some bait yesterday on Twitter is how I'm going to describe it. And boy, did you all bite. And look, it's not like I'm trying to get people to bite. I just wanted to know where the fan base stood on the running back position. As we get into the 11 o'clock hour, and you can start getting your thoughts together and line up on the phones at 301-230-0980. What is the most overblown take of this Washington Commanders offseason? We'll get into that as we roll into the 11 o'clock hour. But I want to continue talking about what we opened up with here. Obviously, the Cap's in a great spot. Looks like they're in a really good spot to get geared up for a playoff push, a 3-goal second period last night. They were physical, fast, flying around the boards. It was awesome to see. The owner of the Washington Capitals, Ted Leonsis, he joined Kevin Sheehan yesterday, joined Grant and Danny earlier in the week and gave some thoughts on purchasing the Washington Nationals. Before we let you hear from Ted, I do want to look at the Nationals here real quick. They're back in action tonight as they start a weekend series on the road against the Miami Marlins. So after going 4-2 in their homestand, the Nats now getting ready to play. I think it's something like 11 straight on the road for the Curly W. So we'll see how they come out of that. Last year it was interesting. It felt like it was the one year where they didn't struggle with Miami. Mitchell Parker expected to be on the bump tonight for the fellas. And look, the way that they looked during that 6-game homestand makes you believe some of the scuttlebutt that was coming out of Jupiter in training camp, or excuse me, in spring training. And think about what you continue to hear. And I love the messaging, by the way, because you run the risk of this fan base getting apathetic if you continue to have losing season after losing season after losing season. And I think the messaging coming out of spring training was, hey, look, we feel like no matter what the outsiders think, everyone here internally feels as if this group is primed and ready potentially to compete for a wild card spot. And if you remember last year, I think it was mid-June, toward the end of June, they were in sole possession of one of the wild card spots in the National League. Obviously, consistency was the issue for that group. The number one thing that I focus on with this year's Nat squad is how do the youngins continue to grow and develop, right? The 2 starting pitchers that look like they have the potential to be aces here in your lineup, depending on, their consistency throughout the regular season. Talking about Mackenzie Gore and Jake Irvin. Jake Irvin with a masterful performance the other night against LA, giving up 4 runs in the first inning and then retiring 18 of the next 21 batters. Like, that's the type of stuff, that's the type of resiliency that you want from your number 2 pitcher. Mackenzie Gore, we've seen the way that he's looked to start the year, the way he looked on opening day against Philadelphia. Absolute chef's kiss. But the growth and development of those 2 guys, first full year of James Wood being in the majors, first full year of Dylan Cruz being in the majors, K-Bear Ruiz, who is off to a really good start at the plate this year. Like, that's the stuff that you're really looking at here, not really concerned with the win-loss record. But the way that they started out, what was it, a 1-6 start? It got early very fast for the Washington Nationals. You get swept by Toronto. You lose the first game of your 3-game series at home against Arizona, and then you go on and rip off 4 out of your next 5. So you're feeling good about yourselves. Here's the thing, though. No matter how good this group looks, right? Let me backtrack. There is an added incentive, I would say, for the youngins to play well. It means a little bit more. And James Wood, to me, like, I think he's got superstar written all over him. The way C.J. Abrams has been at the plate to start this year, he, to me, has superstar written all over him. But if your young pups don't take a step forward and show that, hey, we're maybe closer to competing than you think, what type of incentive do the learners have to go out and spend big on this baseball team? And I think that is the dilemma that has come up here whenever we discuss the Washington Nationals. Now, a lot of fans have been clamoring for Ted Leonsis, the owner of the Caps, Mystics, and Wizards, to get in on potentially buying the Nationals, because people think, well, if Ted was the owner, they would go out and they would be more inclined to spend money. Well, here is Ted Leonsis, the owner of Monumental Sports. He joined Grant and Danny earlier this week, this past Tuesday, and had this to say about his interest in buying the Washington Nationals. I have a little bit of a technical gaffe. 1 second here. We're not perfect here. Ted Leonsis and I was imperfect as well. Oh my gosh. I just heard myself back in my ear. That was weird, Chris. But, and I was wrong on the date here. It was Monday that Ted Leonsis joined Grant and Danny and spoke about his interest in buying the Washington Nationals. We'll play the audio for you when we got it ready. In a nutshell, Ted said, yeah, I will always remain interested. But, as the learners, they've started the season. So, we're not having discussions mid-year about a sale of a baseball franchise. That would be completely irresponsible on the behalf of the learners. So, Ted giving me, I don't want to call it politically correct, Ted giving the answer that he should have gave when asked, does he have interest still in purchasing the Nationals?
Yeah, I'm forever interested. But the season started, and that should be a signal that, when the season starts, that the Lerner family is very committed and the team's really not for sale. The news on the network was a surprise. The media was reporting, a logical place would be for it to, for the Nats to come next season onto our network. But for those of us who are aware of what's going on in the local media space, there's not really an opportunity to pay another team on our network because we're not going to get additional dollars, at least not next year. So it was, this is a Rubik's Cube that still needs to be solved. And I think where the Lerner family is, and we haven't had active conversations, is they're rebuilding the team. They're excited about the team. The new season has started. They don't want any rumors, any hoopla about corporate developments. They want to focus on the team, and I totally understand that and respect that. Mark Lerner came to the game when Alex scored 2 goals, met Wayne Gretzky. I mean, we're close friends. I love the family. I'm going to be here. We'll keep the lights on, but there's nothing active going on. And, I'm going to go out and buy season tickets for the Nationals. It's hard to go to games, when Caps are still in season, Wizards are still in season. But I look forward to going and checking out the team. And, I enjoy going to baseball games. So I'm interested, but it doesn't seem right now that they're that interested. And I totally understand why.
That is Ted Leonsis, the owner of the Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, Washington Mystics, keeping the door open, as he should, right, on potentially buying the Washington Nationals. I think since hearing him yesterday with Kevin and then hearing him earlier this week with Grant and Danny, I think there is a conversation to be had about, well, why do we want new ownership for the Washington Nationals? What is the issue with the current ownership that exists in DC with the baseball franchise? And I think the issue that folks have had is their inability to retain the top stars that have come through this organization. Your Kyle Schwarbers, your Bryce Harpers, your Trey Turners, your Juan Sotos, Anthony Rendon back in the day. Like, there's been this reluctancy on behalf of the that they're cheap. I don't know if it's necessarily true. I think when you go back and crunch the numbers, since Washington has come to, or since professional baseball has come to Washington back in 2005, like, they have been selective spenders, right? And obviously the first 6-7 years being here locally, they weren't ready to compete. See, this is the thing that I feel like fans don't understand. If I am an ownership group, why am I going to go out and have a top 5 to 10 payroll in all of Major League Baseball if I know my team's not ready to compete for a World Series? Like, that to me is when you get aggressive as an ownership group in terms of going out and spending. The LA Dodgers have completely ruined Major League Baseball and the thought process around Major League Baseball. That ownership group is deep in the pockets and have the ability to go out and have a top payroll in the majors every year. They're deferring money out of the wazoo, right? Like you see the structure of some of these big time deals that they've divvied out here. This ain't that, right? We're Washington, D.C., right? You're a top 5 media market in the country. So you think, yeah, you got to go out and spend money. The learners have spent money when it has been called for, right? You go back to when they were ready to compete. In 2012, when they made the NLDS, right? They had the 20th 20th highest payroll in all of Major League Baseball. That next year, they go out and spend big money. They go up to 12th, 2014, when they made the NLDS again. Their payroll was 9th. So when they were ready to compete and think about the state of the team at that time, Bryce Harper is turning into a superstar. You go out and spend on your starting pitching. From 2014 all the way up to 2019 when they won the World Series, they had a top 10 payroll in all of Major League Baseball. Why? Because they knew that they were ready to compete for a World Series title. So obviously, I continue to say it, and it sucks for the team because it's just the hand they were dealt, so to speak. They didn't get the opportunity to capitalize financially off of winning the World Series the way other franchises do in all the major professional sports because of COVID. And they still, to me, haven't bounced back from COVID. If you look at the attendance numbers for the Washington Nationals, obviously a sellout opening day, 41,000. But even with the Dodgers coming to town, probably the biggest brand, one of the biggest brands in Major League Baseball, you struggled to get 20,000 people at Nats Park. So, like, it is tough, and there are a lot of different angles that you can look at it at. But, like, to me, I don't know if Ted Leonsis is buying the Nationals. I don't know what type of massive impact that has. Now, obviously, I think from a revenue sharing standpoint, getting the Nationals and having all 162 of their games on the Monumental Sports Network and being able to really monetize off of a regional TV deal, like, yes, that will inject money into the organization. That will pump money into the franchise and allow them to go spend big in the winter months. The other thing that I think is going to help them spend a lot as well is I don't know if they've got it yet or if the conversations are still going on about a naming rights deal for Nats Park. I think
I see safe for my family.
I see safe.
Linnell Willingham sitting in for Kevin Sheehan here on the Kevin Sheehan Show right here on the Team 980. We're always live and free on the Odyssey app as well. We're on stream today. You can catch us on at the Team 980 on the X app. You can check us out on the Team 980's YouTube page as well. I've watched Kevin on video the past couple of days.
Sure, has nice digs.
Yeah, nice studio setup for a guy. Kevin Sheehan, absolutely honored to be able to sit in for him. We're going to get into the NFL draft here as we ease our way into the 11 o'clock hour. But the one thing I would say relative to the NFL draft for the Commanders, and this is just an overarching sweeping thought that I have here, and it was my messaging last offseason when it came to this group. They're not going to please everyone with the decisions that they make, right? Adam Peters and company are not going to please everyone with the decisions they make coming up in the draft. And I think as we sit here, the positive thing, as we sit here about 2 weeks out, is that I can confidently and comfortably say there isn't a glaring need at any position on this roster right now. And that is a testament and a credit to what they were able to accomplish this offseason. Going out and making 2 home run trades on the offensive side of the football. And they deserve credit for this as well. You knew you had to get better coming up this offseason. You knew the status quo was not going to be good enough despite you winning 12 games, despite you making it to the NFC Championship game. And with a weak free agent class, call it what it is, right? It was a weak free agent class. Because of that, the Commanders had to get creative in terms of how they acquired talent, in terms of how they were going to get better. And I think you saw that with them dangling draft picks in order to acquire a Laramie Tunsil and a Deebo Samuel. 2 guys. Philadelphia Eagles by making the moves that they've made this offseason. And I'm not just talking about what they've done offensively either. That's why I keep saying they've put themselves in a position to legitimately go BPA coming up in 2 weeks in April's draft. Now, the big conversation that we're going to continue to have here between now and the start of the draft in about 13 days is, do you stick and pick at 29 and 61, or do you draft who is available for you on the board? And trying to answer that concretely, we're giving you a definitive answer 2 weeks out is really, really hard to do, because that decision gets determined by who's on the board. That decision gets determined by who's on the board. So for those of you out there, and I've seen you all on Twitter, there are folks out there that are going, yeah, you see how many draft picks we traded away? We got to trade back. We got to trade back. Newsflash for you. Let's just use one of my favorite edge rushers for an example. If Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College, who was second in the FBS last year in sacks, if he is sitting there at 29, they're not trading back. You pick up what I'm putting down? Meaning, for them to trade back from 29 and for them to trade back from 61, they've got to have a bucket of guys that they feel like they can select, because you don't want to run the risk of trading back just to say you did it and you end up taking a player that's not as good as the guy that you could have sticked and picked, if that makes sense of what I'm saying here. So to me, the conversation of trading back, we're so far away from it. Honestly, I think it's a conversation we really need to be waiting to have until we're actually at draft day. We're actually at that point in time where it's time to make the decision, where the board is set, so on and so forth.
Well, Linnell, though, wouldn't you say that because he's traded so many draft picks away and things already, that Adam Peters probably doesn't see this as a great draft class like last year? And maybe that's why he doesn't value the picks as much.
You know, that's interesting, because, look, if he feels that way, what was my slogan last year? We're at the mercy of the evaluator. If he feels that way, then, hey, What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to argue that? He is 110% earned the benefit of the doubt. That's why I continue to say, whatever they choose to do, deal with it, right? Like, he's earned this trust. They knocked the draft in the offseason out of the park last year. It's the same thought process that I had going into free agency. He's earned the right to go make a move that we would consider head-scratching because he knows all. Adam Peters knows all. And I'm obviously being sarcastic and facetious when I say that, but I'll continue to reiterate he's earned my trust. The other part of the equation is this. If I was to ask them what their biggest, most pressing need is, what would they say? Because I continue to have a hard time addressing it. I have a hard time finding an answer for that. And I think the common answer amongst the fan base would be defensive end. We need an impactful guy on the edge that can not only rush the passer and give you double-digit sack potential, but also be strong at the point of attack playing the run. I think that is the biggest need right now on this football team. But when you bring in a Dietrich Wise via free agency, when you've got Dorrance Armstrong returning in the second year of his free agent deal, when you've got Javonte Jean-Baptiste going into year number 2, right? When you bring back a guy like Cleveland Farrell, look, I think they are moving with the thought process of, hey, we don't have to do anything coming up here in this draft. Now, obviously, they're going to pick somebody, right? They're not going to walk away and not select anybody, but you get what I'm saying here. They have done such a good job this offseason, and it may not seem like it to the common fan, I guess, because it hasn't been all sexy, flashy, flair, and glamour, acquisitions, right? Debo and Laramie Tunsil obviously are going to take the cake as being that move that really sets you apart. But I mentioned his name a moment ago. Dietrich Wise, the young man that you were able to bring in from the New England Patriots, I am a huge fan of what he can bring to this football team. I really do believe that. First of all, anytime you have the opportunity to add a guy that has championship pedigree like Dietrich Wise, you make your football team better. And I think at 6'5", 280, he has the body type to be able to consistently set the edge. I got to go back and double check the numbers here. I'm pretty sure for Dietrich Wise, it's something like a total of 16 sacks over the past 3 seasons. So it's a guy that's got some pass rush juice. It's a guy that has the ability to get at. Wow. So I completely underestimated the number. So, wow. This makes me feel a lot better about the signing than I was on surface level at first blush. So last year it's 5 sacks for Dietrich Wise. 2023 it's 4.5, and then 2022 it's 7.5. So this is a guy that's had pretty good pass rush production over the past 3 seasons, with 2022 being the best pass rushing season he's had of his career. So for all of the folks that are concerned about what they are going to do up front, because that was the clear Achilles heel of this football team last year, Dietrich Wise is going to move the needle for this group, I feel like. Eddie Goldman, whether he makes the team or not, is still to be seen. But if he does, they didn't have an Eddie Goldman on this roster last year, a true nose tackle that can eat double teams and keep linebackers clean. We continue to, complain and moan and groan about the run defense. Well, they addressed the run defense this year. They didn't do it in the most sexy, flashy way, but clearly they feel like they're better at that position, talking about their defensive line. And I look at it, and I said at the start of the show, they brought in Josh Johnson, right? You now got 4 quarterbacks. Unless he stinks up the joint, he's probably going to make this team and be in that Jeff Driscoll role from a season ago. But whether it's quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive line, corner, this is going to be a very difficult football team to make, and that is a good thing. So this offseason and free agency may not have been filled with the sexy splash moves, but I think no one can argue that they have drastically increased the floor of this football team. 301-230-0980 is the number. First hour in the books right here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. Linnell Willingham sitting in for Kevin Sheehan. We'll take you up to 1 p.m. Eastern time. We'll take a quick time out. When we come back, we will keep the conversation on the burgundy and gold. What is the most overblown take of this Commanders offseason that you've heard? We'll tackle that next, right here on the Team 980. It's Kevin Sheehan Show, Team 980. We're always live and free on the always free Odyssey app. Youngest and Charles and L. Willingham sitting in for Kevin as we take you up to 1 p.m. Eastern time. Right now, talking all things NFL draft, 13 days out from night one, round one of the 2025 NFL draft. And I guess the big question here that we probably all have is, well, what are they going to do coming up in the draft? Do they stick and pick at 29 and 61, or do they take a player that is available? As I mentioned in the last segment, I feel like that decision probably doesn't get made until draft day because it's going to depend on who's on the board. But as we sit here now, I can see them sticking and picking. I can see them trading back. The one scenario I do not see is them trading up. But speaking of scenarios, right? That's why we love the offseason. Everyone gets to give their 2 cents on what they think should happen from fans, media members, you name it. I want to take a look at what I consider to be some of the most overblown takes of this Commanders offseason. I feel like the one thing that we're all in agreement on is that this group needs to improve at the defensive end spot. We talked about that in the last segment. I think the other consensus, and this has been reported by John Keim of ESPN, this has been talked about ad nauseum by all of our hosts, and some of the draft gurus have, thrown this take out as well. Washington needs to upgrade the running back position and bring in a dynamic weapon at that spot. And initially, yes, 100%. I don't think anyone can disagree with the fact that Washington can for sure stand to use a more explosive running back. But in the process of us expressing our desire for another back, we have in turn completely trashed Brian Robinson. Or at least that's some of the scuttlebutt and discussion I hear on social media, I read on social media. And I'll be real about the running back position because there's some numbers here that kind of lend itself to the discussion. I think, yes, it is very, very clear Washington needs to add a running back. But more importantly than just a running back, to me, Washington needs another explosive weapon on their offense. Like that, to me, is the issue. A season ago, Washington had 15 touchdown drives of 6 plays or less. In comparison, the Bills had 29 to 30, right? The idea that Washington will be able to have these 16-play, 7-minute drives next year, it's kind of a pipe dream. Now, it worked this year. You were uber efficient on first and second down. You were able to put yourself in fourth and short a lot, which allowed you to have the best fourth down conversion rate in the history of the National Football League. So, I get the thought process. It's an advantage, all of that. But I think in terms of what is left to accomplish offensively this offseason, rather than putting it on one position, I think they need to add another explosive, dynamic weapon that can hit home runs in this offense. Hell, maybe not even home runs. We didn't even see them hit a lot of doubles and triples a season ago, right? A lot of the times when they scored, and there were explosive plays in this offense. I don't want to act as if they had no explosive plays, but it felt like on these 15, 16 play drives is death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like that was their bread and butter as to how to score. Eating clock, using their tempo, and having these long, drawn-out drives. I don't know how replicable that is for next year, which is why, to me, we need to add a running back. We need to add a running back. But it's not just a running back. It's an explosive weapon to me. And that's probably one of the most overblown takes of this offseason is that the Commanders must add a running back early. That Brian Robinson is trash or garbage or is just going to be thrown to the wayside. I wish we could bet on it. I think he makes this team. I think I have a really hard time not seeing him make the team. The other thing I would say about the running game itself is this. Last year down the stretch, if you were watching this thing closely,
yes, right, the running backs need to be better. Brian Robinson needs to run with better vision. I thought he wasn't running as hard after the fumble issues against Philadelphia. That's here nor there. The other part of the equation with the run game and the success of the run game is how well you're blocking it up. And I love Tyler Biadasz. I love Sam Cosmi. I love Nick Allegretti. That interior three down the stretch got their ass whipped, to put it mildly. And that's not some personal attack on any of the guys. It is what it is. Go cut on the tape. Go watch. Really, and I'm going to pull up the schedule here so I can have some reference points. But, like, man, the New Orleans game, and I think they were without Biadasz in that game, and you were playing Michael Dieter, so I give you the benefit of the doubt with that. But, like, that second Philadelphia matchup, that first Cowboys matchup at home where you lost, you couldn't run the football. The outlier in terms of their rushing success down the stretch is that game against Tennessee coming out of the bye where Brian Robinson had his best performance of the season. And in that game, Washington as a team, 45 carries, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns to the tune of 6 yards a pop. That didn't happen again throughout the rest of the regular season. They struggled to run the football down the stretch, even when you include the postseason. I think it's something like, if you include their last 11 games, including the 3 playoff games, it was something like 3 yards a carry from the running backs. Now, the offensive line plays a part in that. And I think last year, at times, the holes were not there for Brian Robinson. And it feels like, and this is based on what I'm getting off of social media, it feels like this fan base has quickly soured on Brian Robinson, and you all are ready to kick him to the wayside, and you don't feel like he's even going to make the roster next year. I think Brian Robinson last year did a really good job early on in the season. Like I said, I think down the stretch, he faltered a little bit as well, but it wasn't all on Brian Robinson. Your running game, which was top 5 all year long, doesn't just come to a screeching halt down the stretch because of one singular thing. I think Brian Robinson and the backs, plural, needed to do a better job running with more decisiveness and hitting the hole harder. I also thought the offensive line struggled to create movement. That's a real thing, which is why, to me, when we're looking at Brian Robinson, when we're looking at the run game, I don't just think it's him. I also think maybe you can improve on the interior of your offensive line. Now, I think Tyler Biadasz is going to be firmly set in stone up front as your starting center. But Sam Cosmi, we know, is going to miss the initial part of the season. We may not see Sam Cosmi until Thanksgiving time, depending on how he recovers. When you tear your ACL toward the end of January, that's normally a 9 to 11 month recovery period, right? And who knows, maybe Sam Cosmi is a freakazoid and is able to come back a lot quicker. But I think going into this year, going into next season, like, the draft is your last opportunity really to do it, unless you look at some post-June 1 veteran cuts. But you got to improve the interior of your offensive line as well if you expect this run game to get better, right? You can insert Amarion Hampton. You can insert Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson. But if they're not getting holes and alleys created for them up front, how impactful are they actually going to be to this rushing attack? That's my whole thing, which is why I'm also comfortable not just limiting it to a running back in terms of how they get more explosive. I think wide receiver is another way that you can get explosive as well. The thing that I would say about the running back position, though, specifically, I'm not in the business of drafting a running back at 29. I'll even take it a step further. I'm probably not in the business of drafting a running back at 61 either. But obviously, right, they're in a position where they're going to have to trade back, or they probably are going to have to trade back at some point to get more draft capital. Because going into it right now, I think Washington's got just 5 selections here. Just 5 selections. 29 overall in the first round, 61 overall in the second round, 128 overall in the fourth round via Houston, and then you've got 205 in the 6th and 245 in the 7th. So you're going to have to, and I'm trying to stop myself from saying you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do that. It seems like it'd be hella beneficial, is the way that I'm going to put it, for you to trade back from either 29 or 61. I understand the affinity that this fan base is beginning to grow with some of these running back prospects, specifically Travion Henderson, the running back out of Ohio State, and Omarion Hampton, the running back out of UNC. I get it. But when you look at the other needs on this football team, and when you take into account positional value, I don't know how inclined I'm going to be to take a running back in the first 2 rounds. I just don't know, right? Especially when you consider positional value as well. Like, I get you need a running back. I get that room needs some more juice and pop, as does the entire offense, though. That's how I look at it. See, we're focusing on the running back position. I think wide receiver, potentially you can go get some pop. Here's another scenario that may knock some of your socks off. In round number 1, if Colston Loveland out of the University of Michigan falls to you at 29, I'd have a hard time not running to the podium with that card. And I understand tight end is not some glaring front-of-the-mind need for this group, but in terms of a guy that can give you some added explosion and give you another weapon over the middle, is this group in the position to be turning down good skill players? That's the question here. 301-230-0980. We're phrasing the question this way. What is the most overblown take of this Washington Commanders offseason? For me, it's that Brian Robinson is going to just be thrown to the wayside and, he's probably not going to make the team. I think the running issues for Washington last year down the stretch, it's not just some singular issue. I think multiple parties are responsible for a top 5 running attack, completely falling off the cliff down the stretch. I think the offensive line can be blamed. I think Brian Robinson can be blamed. I want to open it up to this as well. It feels like a lot of us want to draft a running back, and I think that's probably something that they need to do, unless there is a UDFA or a free agent currently of the veteran variety that you feel like can come in here and help you out. So you're going to have to draft a running back. I'm going to plant my flag in the sand, so to speak, right now and say, unless it's Omarion Hampton at 29, I'm not drafting a running back in the first round, and I'm probably not drafting one in the second round either, which then puts that added emphasis on trading back here potentially. But this draft class at running back is so deep. Matt Miller of ESPN said he has 32 draftable running back grades. Todd McShay, longtime ESPN NFL draft analyst, now with The Ringer, says he has 30 draftable running back grades. So with that being said, when you consider the positional value of the running back spot, and then you consider the other glaring needs on this football team, I don't care how sexy of a pick and how excited it gets you, it may be irresponsible to go running back at 29 or 61, especially if you're not going to add any additional ammo to go trade back. 301-230-0980 is the number. Let's go to Rod Landover wants to chime in. What's going on, Rod?
Hey, what's up, bro? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm all right. So, look, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, man. I wouldn't draft at 29 unless it's like maybe a Hampton or something, because I think our running game, we run by committee. We got the quarterback, we got Eckler, we got Robinson. We got a lot of pieces, with our running game. And I think I think a lot of it had a lot to do with the offensive line. Like I heard them say something about Saquon Barkley last year. They said this past year, they was like, he gained like over 1,000 yards before he was even before the first contact.
Bingo, yes.
Which tells me is his offensive line was opening up big holes. I think when you look at Brian Robinson, I kind of like him. He's a downhill runner, but to me, our offensive line in many games was getting blown up where, he had to get yards almost by himself a lot of times.
For sure.
I think also a part of me also think that those 4 or 5 games when Austin Eckler was hurt, I think that hurt our running game a lot too, because Eckler would come in and pick up 6-7 yards of carry. So I think those games he was missing kind of hurt us a little bit in the run game as well. But I don't think we necessarily need a running back. I mean, maybe we can use one.
Let me ask you this real quick, Rod. Let me ask you this real quick, Rod, and I'll let you answer. Because I'm trying to really get a gauge of what people think. I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, we need a running back. I think it's the idea of what I said a moment ago, and I'll pull the numbers back up. You had 15 touchdown drives of 6 or 6 plays or less. Like, that's one of the worst in the NFL. You struggled to generate explosives. I think the reasoning behind acquiring a running back is maybe he could be a guy that can naturally generate explosive plays for you out of the backfield, catching it or running in between the tackles. So I don't think it's necessarily, hey, you need a running back. Yeah, you want to add to the room. But more importantly, I think you need another dynamic, explosive offensive weapon.
And I agree. I mean, because, again, Jaden Daniels is going to bring a lot of explosiveness by himself alone. We just added Deebo Samuel. I'm glad we signed Noah Brown because I kind of like Noah Brown when he.
I love Noah. And look, low key, that may be part of the reason the run game slipped down the stretch as well. He was doing dirty work in there.
It may be. So I think a lot of factors play a role with that running game, man. But I think that offensive line also, you know, they was getting blown up a lot, man. I like the team that we got, man. Maybe if to me, offensive pieces, I don't think we need too many offensive pieces for real. I want us to work on that defense. We didn't have a problem moving the ball and scoring. We had a problem stopping other people most of the time.
That's mostly the issue, Rod. And I appreciate the call as always, brother. Enjoy your weekend. 301-230-0980 is the number. We'll continue to take your calls on where the Commanders should draft a running back. We'll do that coming up on the other side of this break. Plus, Mel Kiper dropped a 2-round mock draft. We'll tell you which 2 players he had going to Washington at 29 and 61 next right here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. Okay. DC Sound Attack. It's Kevin Sheehan Show right here on the Team 980. We're always live and free on the Odyssey app. We're also streaming live on the Team 980's YouTube page as well. We're also on the Team 980's X account. That's a lot to get out every day for Kevin Sheehan. Knowing how Kevin operates, woof, tongue twister. We are on the X account as well. We got the video stream going here. We'll read some of your comments if you all have them throughout the show. Continuing to take your calls, though, at 301-230-0980. Talking all things NFL draft. But right now, specific to the running back position, where should the Commanders draft a running back? I continue to feel like there's some parameters around my thought process and when I would want them to go running back. If Omarion Hampton out of the University of North Carolina is there at 29, which as we get closer to the actual start of the draft, it's becoming less and less likely that that's actually the case. But let's say that he is there. That's a running back that I'm willing to take early. If Travion Henderson is available at 61, that is a running back I'm willing to take early. Now, obviously, Washington's got just 5 draft picks. And the news that we got to start the show actually helps Washington in terms of acquiring more picks. We announced at the start of the show 2 quarterback items. Washington signs Josh Johnson to their roster, making them now have 4 quarterbacks entering the offseason program. That's not what really helps Washington. Cleveland put pen to paper with veteran Joe Flacco. What that means to me, I think, and this is just me kind of, getting the brain churning here. Them signing Flacco, I think, pretty much closes the door on them drafting Shador at number 2 overall, which means Cleveland, New York, 2 teams, talking about the Giants and the Browns at 2 and 3. I expect them both to pass on quarterback. How that helps Washington is it makes those 2 teams more inclined to move up into the back of the first round to secure that extra year of control. That may help Washington recoup some of the draft capital it's lost over the past calendar year, acquiring Deebo Samuel, Marshawn Lattimore, as well as Laramie Tunsil. That being said, if Washington trades out of round 1 and is able to get extra draft capital, still doesn't mean I'm reaching for a running back. There are 32, according to Matt Miller of the NFL, who covers the NFL draft for ESPN, and then Todd McShay, who covers the NFL draft for The Ringer. Those 2 dudes both have 30-plus draftable running back grades. I know this is the part of the process where we get enamored and excited by the name. But, man, if you can get your full allotment of picks back, you've currently got 5. If you can get to 7 or 8, why is there this pressing need from the fan base that we got to take a running back early? I don't think that's the case. And as I continue to say, I don't know if running back, so to speak, is the big need more so than adding another explosive offensive weapon. Because I gave you the numbers several times throughout the show. I got this from the John Keim report, and I think he got these numbers via True Media. 15 touchdown drives of 6 plays or less last year. Like, that's tough. You got to generate more explosives if you are this Washington Commanders offense, because while it's demoralizing to the defense to go, 17 plays to eat up 8.5 minutes of clock, it's really hard to replicate that formula. And you got to play mistake-free football. The moment you get behind the chains, it felt like last year for Washington, the drive was over. So that's kind of how I'm looking at things. Mel Kiper dropped the 2-round mock draft. We'll get to that coming up momentarily as well. But right now, taking your calls. Where should the Commanders draft a running back? And then if you want to add this onto it as well, what's been like the most overblown Commanders take you've heard this offseason? For me, it's Brian Robinson just needs to get thrown to the wayside. Mike is in Seat Pleasant. What's chime in? What's going on, Mike?
Hello?
What's going on, Mike? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Yeah, so the first thing is that offensive line. They could get a running back at 125 they pick? 100? You got to find the diamond in the rough, the person that's picking the players. That's the most important thing. And that offensive line is everything. You can't run the football. Ain't nobody you got them little small linemen. They need a tight end. To be honest with you, they need a middle linebacker because his range. The defense was awful, and they can't run the football. They can't run the football, and the defense is all and the middle linebacker just don't have that range no more. Get a young, nice little linebacker in the draft. Get a tight end, and we also need a wide receiver. You need 2 big-time wide receivers to win it all. We're trying to win it all
for sure.
And you get and offensive line. Get that offensive line. Get another middle linebacker, and I'm gonna take a chance on this. You really need a safety too, but I'm passing it back. Tight end, offensive line. They got a lot of holes. It's the person picking the players, man. Got to find a diamond in the rough.
For sure. And we trust him, Mike. That's the whole thing here, man. That's what, look, he got this job from building the San Francisco 49ers the way that he did. Real quick here, before I let you go, Mike, and I'll let you respond to this. The track record of the draft says that Adam Peters and company are not going to draft a running back within the first 2 rounds. They did not do that once while he was in San Francisco. Their sweet spot for the running back has been rounds 3 through 5. I do not expect that thought process to change wholeheartedly here. Mike, we appreciate the call as always, brother. 301-230-0980 is the number. I think, look, like there is a lot of things, a lot of ways you could go to acquire that running back. And I want to continue to make this, I'm going to sound like a broken record, to keep putting this point across to you all. Yes, they need a running back, but more importantly, it's about an explosive weapon. If that's by way of the running back position, so be it. But we need more explosive play potential. Our guy Ellison Burley in the chat says plenty of good running backs you can get in rounds 3 through 4. You damn right. This is, and look, when there are 30 draftable running back grades, man, you may be able to find a starting tailback in round 4, round 5, round 6 potentially. And I know, like, this is where we get caught up with this process, is you get enamored by the names, right? I love Omarion Hampton. I tweeted it out at the beginning of the draft process, and it was met with a bunch of pushback, but clearly the thought process has changed here now that we've gotten more of an opportunity to grind tape. There is not this sizable gap that exists between Ashton Genty out of Boise State and Omarion Hampton out of UNC. I do not believe that. So if Hampton falls to 29, you see me on camera the way I just broke. I think I can move that quick, did you? Run the pick in. Run the pick in. I promise you. That's what you got to do. Travion Henderson, and I know we've heard, I think it was Thor Nordstrom that joined B. Mitch and Finley earlier last week. He was potentially advocating for Travion Henderson in round 1. Hell no. I'm sorry. And it has nothing to do with how good of a football player Travion Henderson is. That would be organizational malpractice, in my opinion. And I'll be honest with you, I'm even hesitant on taking Omarion Hampton in the first round, because when you talk about positional value, is Omarion Hampton a Bijan Robinson type of running back? Bijan was taken, well, I think the 7th overall pick by Atlanta. Saquon Barkley, former top 5 pick. Hampton's not that. I don't think Genty is even that. But the numbers is kind of hard to argue with. But, like, I just think as far as positional value, and that comes into play here when making these decisions, when you're taking positional value into consideration, when you're taking Adam Peters' draft history into consideration, they're probably not taking a running back within the first 2 rounds. If they don't take one in round 1, if they don't take one in round 2, I feel like 4, 5, maybe even 6, if it's that deep of a class, you could potentially go get a guy that gives you that home run pop, that home run burst that you're actually looking for. 301-230-0980, the number right here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. Linnell Willingham sitting in for Kevin as we take you up to 1 p.m. Eastern time. We'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll keep our conversation on the NFL draft as we continue to take your calls. Mel Kiper dropped a 2-round mock on ESPN. Who did he have to Washington at picks number 29 and 61? We'll get to that next right here on the Team 980. It's Kevin Sheehan Show, Team 980. We're always live and free on the Odyssey app as well. It's the youngest in Charles Linnell Willingham sitting in for Kevin Sheehan. We'll take you up to 1 p.m. Before we hand things over to that caged animal, Chris Russell. He'll take you from 1 to 4 p.m. I said that because I know Chris is in his car right now. He's on his way here. So he picked up the little zing that we shot at him. What do you got, Chris? What were you about to say?
I was just going to say, you can't cage that rooster.
I was about to say, he is one of few animals with wings that can't get off the ground. That's how I would describe him. Taking your calls though, man. 301-230-0980. I'm actually, if you're looking at us on the stream, we're live on the Team 980's YouTube account. We're also live on the Team 980's X account as well. So you can chime in with the show there, type in the chat. We'll read the best comments here on air. Talking about the running back position and what is the sweet spot where Washington should take that. And I'm tweeting it out right now. It's at NELL_BTP. To me, it really depends on who is available. But the more and more we have this conversation, it's starting to sound irresponsible for Washington to take a running back within the first 2 rounds. When you consider positional value, the depth of this class, and then the other holes that exist on this football team. That's just how I look at it. 301-230-0980 is the number. Jermaine and Bowie wants to chime in. Jermaine, what do you think?
Hey, what's up in there?
What's going on, brother?
Hey, man, I agree. We can't take a running back that early. A decent running back around 3 through 5 is a realistic thing. I think everybody looks at Saquon Barkley. Man, that's a once-in-a-lifetime talent. And remember, Saquon Barkley wasn't great he was good at New York with the Giants, but he didn't have the impact until he got with Philly with that offensive line and with that team around him. So I think we should build those trenches. You got to build the offensive defensive line. And then we can get a decent running back, I think, really around 5, maybe even later than that. The running back pool is deep this year. But we got to fill other holes. I'm with you on that.
So, and I 100% agree with you, Jermaine. And I'm glad that you brought up the offensive line, too, because that's the other place that I was kind of going to pivot to. Depending on who slides, man, you're really if Brandon Coleman at right tackle is going to be a thing, you're really one offensive line away from having a group, Jermaine, that you could pat yourselves on the back for and poster it as one of the best in the NFL over the next 4 or 5 years. Tunsil at left tackle, your guard center guard combo with Biotish, Cosme, and whatever rookie you draft could potentially be set, and then Brandon Coleman at right tackle. So it's not like running back. It's not like it's running back or die in the first 2 rounds the way some folks are making it seem like.
Yeah, and I look at it too. Philly in the championship game against us, they lost a lineman, and they still were able to fill out
depth,
that
man.
gap.
Exactly.
Their center was so we've got to build that depth too. I think that's the way you do it. Is you build in the trenches, and whoever you put back there running back is going to make impact. And I don't know what's up with man. I like B-Rob. I don't know why B-Rob is getting so much hate, man. He's a decent back. If you put him behind a good line, B-Rob is a good back. He's been solid for us.
So I got to go check the box score, and I appreciate your call as always, Jermaine. I hope you have a good weekend, my brother. So I got to go look at the box score. The one thing that I think we're all forgetting last year about Brian Robinson, Chris, do you remember that game? I don't know if you were working that day with us or not. It was a game.
Most of them.
I know. That's why I asked. There was a game last year, and I'm looking at his carries to see like where he had the fewest. It was either the Cleveland game or this Dallas game. He damn near broke his ankle, it looked like. And then he obviously ended up not being ruled out for the rest of the game. He came back in, but there was an injury designation for him for like the next month. So I do think if we all look at this thing objectively and don't, if we all look at this thing objectively and be honest about it, Brian Robinson was damn good last year pre-injury. I think that the spot in the season where he got injured and returned, you kind of saw the decisiveness go away with him. The thing I loved about Brian Robinson last year, he was a hammer. He was a physical, tone-setting back for this offense a season ago. 2 out of their first 4 games last year, he goes for over 100 yards. And it's the yards after contact that really was the, whoa, we got a guy, right? Like that's what really made your jaw drop. That was what made you go, wow, we got a dude. I don't think that they're viewing the position as we got to upgrade from B-Rob. I think if the cards fall their way, if the cards are dealt a certain way, so to speak, and they're able to get a running back in round 3 or round 4 or round 5, they'll do it. They're going to add to the room, but doing it in the first 2 rounds, I don't think is a foregone conclusion. And I may also go as far as to say maybe it's irresponsible if they draft a running back within the first 2 rounds. It is irresponsible. When you consider the other needs that they have, I think it's kind of irresponsible to draft a running back in the first 2 rounds.
I don't think they're in a position where they need to draft someone that's going to be a starter right away. They're in a great position to draft someone that might need a year or 2 to develop, and that's kind of where I feel like they're at.
100%. 301-230-0980 is the number. What is the sweet spot for the Washington Commanders to select a running back? Our guy Gregory Pett in the chat says, at 29, get that edge. And if not in love, try and trade in the 30s and get some picks. If not, get Luther Burton. I think in the trade back scenario, I'll say this. I think the Commanders are more likely to take a back early if they move back from 29 or from 61. I think it becomes more likely at that point for them to take the back early. But to Gregory Pett's point in the chat, he brings up Luther Burton. Luther Burton would fit that bill of that skill position guy that comes in here and makes your offense that more explosive, that more dynamic from the get-go. Because you all remember it. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. It was awesome to watch at times. I'll be real. It's demoralizing to the opposing defense. I get it. But these 17-play, 8-minute, 40-second drives, I don't know how sustainable they are. 301-230-0980 is the number. Cam is in D.C. Wants to chime in. What's going on, Cam?
Yo, what's up, brother? How are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing well. Hey, man, my philosophy is the best teams always take best player available, right? So
sure.
We got a quarterback, got that out the way. So if Trayon Henderson is available at 29, you take him. It's not like we didn't fill up with the offensive line and defensive line depth in the offseason. Like most of our signings, I don't think we signed a single starter in the last month other than Tunsil, obviously. So we got the depth. Of course, you can always use more, but the best teams take best player available, and that's a running back, a wide receiver, a cornerback, edge, whatever. You take the best player available at 29 or whoever you trade back and get.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What would you say, and we're asking everybody this that calls in at this point, what do you think the most glaring hole is for this group as they enter the draft? And I want to rephrase that real quick, Cam, because I personally don't think they have a glaring hole. They could go play a football game right now, and I would have the utmost confidence in them coming out of it with a W. But knowing the other ancillary pieces that they can still add, what do you have to leave the draft with?
I would say a good depth or even a starter DB, right?
Yeah.
You got, obviously Mikey's great, but he's playing out of position. Like he was drafted to play slot. We just didn't have 2 serviceable outside corners, right? And so we draft an outside corner that can play. That helps with the defensive line. That helps with the rush. So that kind of alleviates a little bit the edge problem, right? We ain't getting enough pressure on the opposing team's QB. So we can help if we can do what Philly does, where they, either not Philly, that's a bad example because they don't rush, they don't blitz. But we can do what some of the teams do, where they can blitz 5 or 6 and still not give up a big play on the back end.
So cornerback for you. So corner for you is that spot. For sure.
Right, and I totally agree. I don't see no glaring omissions, but to me, if we can get a DB that we can move Mikey back to his true position, and then have 3 solid starters, as long as good depth pieces as well. Yeah, I think that does kind of shore up or put duct tape over the hole. We're not getting enough from the corners here.
For sure. Cam, appreciate the call as always, my brother. Enjoy the weekend. 301-230-0980. I can't believe we've gotten here this quickly. Show is breezing by. Final hour of power coming up on the other side of the break. We'll continue to take your calls at 301-230-0980. What is the sweet spot for the Washington Commanders to select a running back? Plus, we will finally pay off the tease of Mel Kiper's 2-round mock that he dropped a couple of days ago. Who does he have coming to Washington? That is next here on the Team 980. Mm.